It's quite the inspiring conversation with new Senator, Deputy Spokesperson on Finance and the Public Service, and CEO of Barita Investments, Ramon Small Ferguson. A pleasure to have you on the Trailblazers platform. I know right before we started, I was trying to jog your memory because I remember a few years back when I started the Trailblazers, you came up to me at the Pegasus and you were like, "Hey, I loved your interview with Chris Willie at the time." So it's sort of like a full circle moment having you here on the program. Welcome.
Thank you, Tamara. I'm very happy to be here for sure. Very excited to talk to you today.
Thank you so much. I was trying to figure out before we started, how come you have a double-barreled name, Small Ferguson? Because of course your dad is Fenton Ferguson, and you are no way small, by the way. You're quite tall.
Yeah. So it's as I said to you, it's a good conversation starter because I am 6'7" and my last name is Small, but I have been blessed with both my parents' last names. So my mother is Small
Mhm.
and my father is Ferguson. So
Oh,
I've been blessed to carry on both legacies into the
fantastic.
future.
Fantastic. Well, first and foremost, congrats.
Thank
You're
you.
a trailblazer in the world of finance. But latest development, of course, recently you were added to the opposition as a senator and also a part of the opposition shadow cabinet there, working alongside Julian Robinson as a deputy spokesperson in finance. So, how do you feel about all of this?
Thank you very much for the kind words. There are a number of words that I could use to describe the feeling. First of all, I'm humbled to even have been considered for this role. It means a lot when people, look at you, assess you, and think that you have something to bring to the table in any respect. So it was definitely humbling to be asked to join the Senate via the opposition. Other than that, I think it's really a tremendous responsibility. I mean, I see myself in this respect as being a true servant to the people. I have committed to working on their behalf via this role to uphold the Constitution and really apply my skills towards policy that will be supportive of a better Jamaica for the future. So I feel that tremendous weight of responsibility. It's not something that I take lightly. And I'm intending to really bring the full weight of my experience, all the effort, innovation. I want to collaborate with not only those on my side of the house, but all of the Senate in totality to really see how we can do our part to move Jamaica forward.
Certainly. And of course, Rahman, coming from a political background, of course, your father, Fenton Ferguson, is a stalwart in the PNP. By the way, if you are not involved necessarily in politics or know the inner workings, a lot of people did not know that Fenton was your dad. With your dad, of course, being a stalwart in politics in Jamaica, I noted at the swearing in he was there when I was watching it. Is there
Yeah,
anything that you would have learned from him that you're taking into your role as a senator?
it's a good question. I mean, I certainly um, am very proud of the legacy that my father would have built via his service to Jamaica through politics. I mean, he gave almost 3 decades of unbroken service, and I can confidently say has positively impacted many lives through that sacrifice. So I'm very proud of that. That being said, I can tell you that up to this point, I have not had much direct involvement in the world of politics at all. I have spent most of my adult life so far really focused on honing my craft in finance. I'm almost 14 years in now into the world of finance. And that's where, as you have said, I've kind of built my name. And I think that above all else is probably what has led me here to have been considered to join the Senate. That being said, I think I've learned a lot from my father, and more than anything else, I think the values surrounding discipline and hard work. with what I will bring into this role. It served me well in the private sector, operating with consistency, which is an element of discipline, being principled in how I move. And I'm going to take that, among other things, with me into this role in the Senate. And I'm expecting to add some value.
Value indeed. And that's such a crucial word. That is, we all need value in everything that we do. So again, I know you mentioned you did not have any political aspirations because, of course, you're in business, all of that. But very often we find, especially in Jamaica, that the children, the kids of politicians, they end up in the political arena. So, I mean, watching your dad operate as a child growing up, did you like at any point even see yourself like being in his shoes one day?
It's funny, right? So, I mean, certainly we've seen that, in politics where children have followed their parents, right? And I think it's probably more prominent in our minds because political life is very visible. But I'm sure we know many second generation carpenters or many second generation doctors, right? They say children live what they learn, right? And my mother was a teacher for many years, and I have a great passion for teaching, right? I actually have entered the world of teaching before entering the world of politics, right? So,
Really?
yeah, so that being said, to answer your question, I did not have politics on the cards for myself. It wasn't something that I would have been aspiring or pushing towards. But what really led me to say yes when I was asked or when I was considered was the opportunity to broaden the platform of impact that I could have beyond just the private sector. That was really what decided it for me at the end of the day. I'm very passionate about Jamaica. I love Jamaica, right? And I'm very deliberately here in this country, building my life and trying to positively affect the lives of those around me, Jamaicans, right? So, and I've been doing that through the private sector for years. So this really has allowed me to add, I guess, to my platform, as I said, of influence. And the hope is that I can, through this role, continue along that road and just, impact in a different way. So I didn't see this for myself. But that being said, I have now, as you said, joined the cohort of sons that are following in their footsteps of their fathers in any profession. Right? This is just a more visible one, I'd say.
True. And that's a good point there in terms of politics being more visible as opposed to another profession that could be, a bit more behind the scenes. But speaking, of
Yeah.
course, of your legacy, I would use the word legacy that you have created in the world of business, currently the CEO of Barita Investments. And I mean, you've had quite, I was like looking at your profile, I had to do a bit of research and I was like, you were at the helm of, in Jamaica National in a major role at the age of 25. So still being young, but accomplishing so much already in business. What would you say has been the best part of your journey so far and also the most challenging part of your journey?
It's a difficult question. Right? I've really had a lot of highlights. I've been blessed so far in my career. I mean, I have, you know, managed through providence. I certainly think it's by virtue of a force well beyond me to encounter people throughout my career who have seen something in me and given me opportunities that were probably usually reserved for people who are older, more experienced than me. But I do have, I guess, a few highlights I'll probably share too. Certainly, one thing that sticks out to me is the first formal appraisal that I had when I was employed by joining the Jamaica National Group when I was 20 as an analyst. I was the first person to hold that role, first analyst that they would have had. And it was admitted to me by management at the time that they really didn't have many or any expectations of me having just come out of school they were kind of just giving me a trial to see how things would work and, take it from there. And I felt that way about myself too, right? I was like, okay, I guess I'm doing all right. And I remember scoring myself in the 70s, going into the appraisal and hearing just a very different perspective as to what my contribution meant to the team. Right? I thought I was just doing an okay job, and I was blown away positively by the feedback that I got. And I left the room with a 90 plus score. Everything was being moved up, and I was actually promoted on spot, right?
Oh, wow.
From an entry level to a supervisory role after 6 months of being in the company. So that's certainly a highlight for me. And the second highlight that I'd share is really, is one that I had here at Barita. Right? So I joined Barita shortly after it was acquired by Cornerstone. Came over here to run the asset management and research businesses within Barita. But shortly after joining, I started to work very closely with the founder and group CEO, Paul Simpson, and our group chief investment officer, Jason Chambers, who was my direct boss at that time. And this was 2019. I was 27, young guy. Here we have one guy who has now to this point founded two companies, and somebody else who has worked, that's Paul, and Jason would have been a senior executive in almost every area of investments that exists, right? All sides of the sphere. Incomparable experience, certainly as it relates to what's commonplace locally. And I found myself at a table with them where they were actually listening to what I had to say. They were taking my feedback. And I remember shortly after coming in, I solved a major problem that they're trying to figure out. And months later, I got my first formal bit of feedback, same kind of setup. And I was told that, we brought you in for one narrow thing, but I am shocked at how broad you are and how much potential you have. And if you stick with this, you can get all the way to the top. And I suppose I did my part, but they were true to their word. They mentored me, coached me. Paul just invested a lot of time in me. And last year, the board, led by recommendation of both of them, I would presume, would have appointed me as CEO of the company. That was certainly a highlight for me. So we're talking about situations here where people have believed in me. They would have given me perspectives that I didn't have for myself. They would have encouraged me along the way, given me opportunities. That I think if I had to attribute my conventional success that I've had to one thing, it's the people who have given me opportunities. And I just want to, via this platform, just in particular highlight my current sponsors and benefactors, Paul Simpson, and Jason Chambers, of course, for sure.
That's amazing. It is really inspiring also to work your way up. It's definitely to me like a true success story and a testament
Thank
to
you.
the hard work, to your dedication, to all that you've been doing, and the fact that, as you rightly mentioned, they saw something in you and they mentored you. And yeah, that's awesome. So on the flip side, I did also say what's been, the
Yes, the challenge is,
challenging. Yeah.
yes. So I'll tell you one, right? And this is not me being vulnerable, but it's important. It's not talked about. I mean, listen, I like everybody else, as a professional, I have a professional pride, I have an ego, and I certainly have my confidence, right? But I do have a healthy level of humility as well that has stayed with me. And I can tell you at different points throughout my career, I had some serious imposter syndrome. I found myself in situations where I looked around and there was nobody else like me in the room, right? And at different points, I questioned myself. I remember the second promotion I got saw me moving from being an analyst to managing a whole bunch of money, right? A whole lot. I mean, still a whole lot even in the current day. And I remember having an almost breakdown one weekend before I was supposed to start the job. Like, what have I gotten myself into? I am now in charge of all of this money. How have I gotten here? And what am I going to do to make sure that I don't mess this thing up? I mean, I was in, in a tormented place and space, right? That was challenging to overcome. I mean, thankfully, at the time, I had a mentor who gave me a very good pep talk, right? And as time went by, I learned to trust myself more. I invested my time in learning, and I am a strong believer in my lifelong learning. And eventually, I have grown into my confidence. So I still know that I don't know everything, but I certainly trust myself a lot more than I did way back then. So that was a challenge, overcoming that imposter syndrome of being, in unusual spaces, and not seeing any comparable faces around.
Wow. And I really do appreciate you being so authentic because the truth is, so many of us experience that, in various fields and various areas of our lives. And so for you to not let that deter you, because I think for me, I always believe that what separates the winners or those who continue to achieve versus those who don't is that, very often others let that fear stop them or that
Yeah,
imposter syndrome stop them. But the fact that you manage to push through those doubts and look at you now and look at what you're going to continue to do maybe a next 10 years from now. So I really do appreciate you sharing that. So, looking at obviously some of the things that you shared and something that you actually mentioned earlier that made it stuck with me is when you mentioned in terms of, when you were approached to be part of the Senate and you noted that you wanted to it's not only just about the PNP, but also JLP, what you're bringing forward, right, to Jamaica. Based on your own knowledge and your own expertise and experience, what is it that you're seeing in terms of applying your vision to the business of the Senate and overall to the public sector and Jamaica's national growth?
so a good question, right? So I mean, there are a few things that I'd say. One is that despite my experience in the private sector, I am new to this space, right? So this is day one for me, and I'm very respectful of institutions, and therefore, the first thing that I have on the cards, and I've been doing some of it on my own and relying on the resources that I've been afforded. The first thing I have on the cards is to get up the learning curve, with respect to, you know, Senate, the upper house, how it works, the protocols, etc. I also need to continue my work of getting read up on history, what's in progress, etc. So I'm certainly not presumptuous enough to believe that I'm going to just sail in here and transform things overnight, right? Um, the other thing is that, the party, the PNP, has a vision for Jamaica, and I think that, ultimately what that vision leads to is a much better quality of life for Jamaicans. So I've said to people that typically political parties don't really differ on the what. The outcomes are usually the same. Everybody kind of wants, a better life for their constituents, right? Where they tend to differ is on the how, right? So I'm certainly very aligned with the what in terms of what the PNP wants to accomplish, and it's important to me as well to understand very clearly. what those things are and really how they apply in the areas where I have core competency, right? I'm intending to be a part of a team. And again, not just a team that's on my side, but the overarching team. The intention is to seek to apply my expertise, particularly in the areas where I'm most steeped. Right? So there are areas that I have interest, and I'll share them with you. Probably, kind of across three categories. The first is, pushing this country towards achieving sustainable economic growth. Right? We've spent a number of years working hard and making sacrifices to achieve fiscal stability. That would have been something that would have started and been entrenched. But way back in 2013, when we entered into that pivotal deal with the IMF, did a lot of legislative work to effectively make it illegal for any government to push the country below a certain level of acceptability with respect to budgetary surpluses, right? That was a major sacrifice. And a lot of that work, all of that work really would have been done back in 2013 after we did that famous IMF deal led by Honorable Portia Simpson-Miller, Dr. Peter Phillips, and all of that legislative work was led by the current party leader, Mark Golding, right? So we did that, and over the several years, we would have had all the sacrifices associated with achieving this fiscal stability. We now need to move into a phase of growth, right? And we certainly need to continue to keep an eye on fiscal stability, but the strategies that have led us here will frankly not lead us to growth. So it's very important to me that we begin to look at all aspects of our society to include our legislation and for that to become an enabler of growth, right?
Yes.
The second category, so to speak, that I have keen interest in is social protection and social justice. And what that means to me is that if we look at Jamaica's demographics, we are a developing country, right? And it means a large section of our society has particular demographics. The best, quote unquote, opportunities that exist in this country are not available to most Jamaicans, right? So it means that even as we aspire to grow, we will need to very deliberately, one, seek to ensure that we protect and uplift the most vulnerable among us, and two, ensure that we are very deliberate about trying to bridge the opportunity gap that exists between those who are less fortunate, let's describe it that way, and those who have better fortunes or better antecedents in terms of generation, right? And I think lifting that floor in terms of the average quality of life of Jamaicans will require us to be very deliberate about social protection and social justice, right? The final area that really has a lot of appeal to me is resilience, right? And what I mean by that is that, when we think about Jamaica, we are a small, open economy, right? We are susceptible to many risks. I mean, we've all seen the effects of climate risk. Right? Heavy rains at the wrong time decimates large parts of our agricultural sector. Hurricanes cause huge infrastructure damage and wipes out several quarters of growth, right? Complementing that as well is just what that means for the fragility of our economy, right? So, us focusing on policies to really strengthen the resilience of the country is something that's important to me too. So, sustainable growth, social protection and social justice and that resilience. My hope is that the discussions in the Senate take us there and that I can contribute in a real way to those discussions.
You're really smart, man.
Thank you. Thank you. I have a lot of people to thank for what I know. I've learned most of what I know from the people who I've had the benefit of interacting with.
Really love the ideas that you shared, quite refreshing. And it's also good when you hear, like, not to say that those who are older, we benefit, as you mentioned, from their wealth of knowledge, from their experience, but also it's good when you have fresh new faces, fresh younger voices that you can also hear and learn from, because I feel that everyone has a role to play. And we definitely see why you've been selected as one of those persons, one of those people.
Thank you.
So, Ramon, one of the things I wanted to ask you, not to be cheeky, but based on everything that you shared, and of course, with your dad being aligned with the People's National Party, what if Dr. Andrew Holness, the Prime Minister and JLP leader, had approached you to be part of the Senate? Would that have been something that you would have considered or not, based on your beliefs and your ideologies?
It's a good question. And yeah, in life, I tend to not operate on counterfactuals. Right? I tend to focus on the actual. And in this instance, the opportunity would have been presented to me by the opposition. I mean, as I said before, and I reiterate it more prominently, the truth is that the values espoused by the People's National Party and the vision that they have for Jamaica is something that resonates with me. I mean, I do genuinely believe that. So, listen, I'm certainly somebody who has, by various roles, driven capitalist intents throughout my career. Right? And I do believe that capitalism is a significant source of value. Right? But I do not believe that there is a clear divide between capitalism and wanting more for all people. Right? I don't think that there's a clear divide there. I do think that when you look at Jamaica, and I said it before, I'll say it again. When we look at our demographic, when we look at the specifics of our country, it's very important for us when we think about government, and even when we look at the private sector, if we have a long-term view, it's important for us to carve out strategies that appeal to our very specific demographic. And the truth is, as a developing country, as I said, there is a large part of our demographic that is below an acceptable level of economic reality, below an acceptable level of education, just generally below an acceptable level of opportunity. Right? And it means that a key tenet of our development, in my view, needs to be the pursuit of social justice, where we seek to embed some equity in opportunity. Right? And
Yes.
that aspect of things is something that the People's National Party has always been about, and it does resonate with me. Right? So at the end of the day, I didn't have that choice to make, the choice that you mentioned. So it's not something that I've had to think about. The choice that I had to make, however, was whether or not I would serve in the opposition. And it's something that I thought about. I applied a lot of intensity in thinking about it, and I decided to. So it tells you, I think, and the public everything that they need to know.
Certainly. And I mean, as you also just mentioned, you're somebody who likes to stick with what's the reality of what's here and now, and not something along the line of what could have or should have or in the future. But I still have to ask you, just out of mere curiosity. I know you're new to the world of politics, not new to business or to finance, right? But has it ever crossed your mind, especially even since being in this role, that maybe one day so often we see people who are senators go into actual representational politics to become like a member of parliament. Do you see a future Ramon running, in a particular constituency, I don't know, St. Thomas or elsewhere, and maybe, charting that path to possibly one day become a future finance minister? Has that crossed your mind?
So a natural question coming from you. I mean, I'd say two things. The first is that, frankly, if you had asked me maybe a year or two ago whether I would see myself in the Senate, I'd probably tell you no or not likely, right? So that's a data point to hold on to. But the second truth is that I have committed myself in a sense, and I have great ambitions to carry out on behalf of clients, shareholders, and the people who have committed themselves to working for the organization that I'm at the helm of, Barita Investments Limited. And therefore, that's really where my focus is. The second area of focus for me is this opportunity that I have been blessed with, this responsibility that I have via the Senate. And that's where I'm applying my energy. I'm frankly not looking much too far past that. I really have no specific ambitions in politics, except to earn the faith that has been placed in me to represent in the Senate. That's my first set of objectives, right? I mean, if I get that right, then we can talk again in a couple of years and we'll see whether my ambitions have evolved. But right now, to be frank, I'm really just focused on what's next in the business that I'm the CEO of. And as I said, getting up the learning curve and really just playing my role. I am among, the team that I have joined. My fellow senators certainly, I've gotten an opportunity to spend more time with those on the side of the opposition, very intelligent people who are very passionate about Jamaica, right? And by virtue of what I know of those on the other side as well, it's the same thing. So I'm just gonna go and try and play my narrow part there and really contribute. That's my focus and objective now. So we'll talk in a few years about whether I have any other aspirations.
Definitely. How
About
do you manage it all? How do you balance?
that's a question I'm still trying to answer for myself. But I can tell you what has worked thus far. I have had to really focus on trying to be very organized and even more deliberate about how I spend my waking moments. So, I run a very tight calendar. Uh, that's one aspect of things. I try to really focus on the things that are quite important. That's where I put my energy. And I have excellent support, certainly in the context of Barita. I have a fantastic team who does a lot of the heavy lifting, right? And allows me to be able to play more of a support role to them, even as they support me and the business. And so the team is another big component. So being organized, yes, but the team, and with respect to the Senate, I'm certainly going to, expand both one and two, my level of organization, and two, as necessary, make whatever adjustments I need to the support system I have around me to make sure that I can make a meaningful contribution. And finally, I have, again, learned over the last couple of years that matters that pertain to everything outside of the work side of things, I can't deal with them in a residual way. So I'm very big on being very deliberate about all aspects of maintaining myself, so my health and well-being, and I'll make sure that I make time for the people who I care about a lot. So family, friends, and so on. That's important too. So I've been trying to balance. I mean, some days are more difficult than others, right? But this is when you make a decision to stand out in any way, right? It will require sacrifice. It will require you to operate in a way that stands out too. So I'm certainly not gonna complain. It's a blessing, and I am treating it as such.
Indeed. We're winding down, but on a lighter note, what do you do for fun?
So over the last 2 years or so, I have become this, I'm not gonna say obsessed, but very appreciative of fitness. So I go to the gym 5 times a week, and more recently I've started running. I don't know what I'm running from or running to, but yeah, I do dedicate a good bit of time to that. Outside of that, I am a people person, particularly as it relates to my people. So, I have um, members of my family who I'm closer to, and, other special people who I definitely dedicate time to. I do read more so audiobooks these days, but I will tell you that I carve out at least a little bit of time just not to do anything at all and enjoy my own company, and decompress. That I have, as I've gotten older, I have gotten a lot more appreciative of that. And then finally, I enjoy the arts, anything live. So I love concerts. Really go to a few concerts overseas a year and locally. I make sure I'm on the concert scene. I love Broadway.
Nice.
So every time I'm in New York, I'm there. Um, and yeah, I mean, I love plays. There's actually a play going on now that I need to go watch. So
The one by Courtly.
absolutely, yeah. So
I
I
know. I made a note of it. I was like, I need to go watch it.
yeah, so I love those kind of things. Anything like live music, dance, um, all performing arts. I love that.
Nice. You mentioned concerts. Who's your favorite artist?
Well, I have a few. I have a very wide taste in music. Somebody described it to me the other day, or described how they characterize it. They were referring to their husband, who is similar, and she said that she his real music ranges from Bach to Bojo, and I'm similar. I listen to Mozart all the way up to all the latest reggae and dancehall. So, in terms of my favorite artists, though, I'll pick out a few. I'm a Bounty Killer fan, since I can remember myself in the 90s all the way to now. Uh, Internationally, I love Weekend. That's actually the last artist I saw live. Drake. Uh, no, who else?
No,
There are
Chris
a lot of
Brown.
people in my playlist. So I definitely have a good appreciation for Chris Brown, although I missed his concert. I don't know how, but I'm sure I'll catch it. And he's having some more shows. Yeah, I mean, I love a wide array of reggae. I'm a big Highway fan. You know, I mean, and I love Sanchez. Sanchez is the man. I saw Sanchez earlier this year. Sanchez is the man. So those are a few. A very weird playlist, but I could go on.
Final question. And it's more, for a moment of inspiration because a lot of people would look at you and they're like, boy, this guy is doing big things. You're a trailblazer in business, in finance. You're making your mark in public life, in terms of the public sector. What mantra, quote, or life lesson would you want to impart to our viewers, to sort of encourage them in their own journey, their own race?
Um, well, I wish you had allowed me to prepare for this one, but there are a few that will come to mind, and I'll probably just give you one or the other. I'm somebody that believes in doing what you have to do. So I mean, I constantly tell people that you do what you have to do so that you can eventually do what you want to do. And I think at the root of that is discipline. Many things that make up my week are things that I'd rather not do, quite frankly. But I do them because I know what the end goal is. I do them because I built up a discipline. I go to the gym between 5:30, 4:30 and 5 o'clock every morning. I'd probably much rather get some more sleep, but that's the time that I have to go to the gym because my days otherwise are so unpredictable or long that uh, count on the evening. So because of everything that I know that I've committed to, and because of the end goal that I have in mind, because of the people who I know are depending on me, who are looking to me to act so that they can act further, or so that they can receive. I'm a big believer in just doing what you have to do so that you can ultimately do what you want to do. So it's not so much about what would appear to be blitz and glamour. It's a lot about the things that you do in the background, in the dark, when people aren't seeing. Right? It's not about the result. So, I'd encourage anybody who wants anything for themselves to prepare their minds to know that they're gonna have to make sacrifices. They're gonna have to do things that they'd rather not do in order to get the outcomes that they really want for themselves.
True word.